Good morning. I'm Catherine Bolton, and I'm president of Albemarle Garden Club, and we're so thrilled to have all of y'all here today. And so happy that you could be with us and support our community project and hear our fabulous speaker, Mark Sikes. Albemarle Garden Club has produced our design forums for nearly 20 years, events focused on Edith Wharton, Bunny Mellon, and Frederick Law Olmsted, and notable speakers Charlotte Moss and Bunny Williams. We love these opportunities for new creative sparks from our speakers and time for some fun. But most importantly, the proceeds from these events allow us to make a difference in our community. Our community projects include funding scholarships for Nature Camp, ARC Natural History Day Camp, and financial support of the Botanical Garden of the Piedmont, and Cultivate Charlottesville. We have put our heart and our soul into the Bog Garden at Booker T. Washington Park, not only with our financial support, but countless hours with our hands in the dirt, weeding and planting. This former landfill has blossomed under AGC's care and support from grants from the Garden Club of America. We also bring our talents to bear in support of the UVA Hospital. We recycle wedding and event flowers into arrangements for those who need a little extra TLC while at UVA Hospital. We call this program Share Your Joy. Our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to all of you for your support, which allows us to continue to make a difference in our community. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, I'm Dana Harris, and there are two local organizations that have been instrumental in helping us push forward on our efforts to create a special space at the Bog Garden at Booker T. Washington Park. Today, I have the honor of telling you a little about these two organizations and presenting them with national commendations from the Garden Club of America. This is Wildrock. Wildrock, a nonprofit dedicated to bringing the natural world to our community's children, has a deep commitment to nature equity with the belief that those who play in nature are the most likely to work to protect nature. Wildrock has been our collaborating partner for 3 education events per year. One of these events, Down by the Bog, a family fun day in the park, had more than 300 participants last year. This 501c3 is a true conservation treasure to our community and deeply deserving of recognition for the work it does to promote learning about our natural world. For its significant contribution to educating our community's children through nature play and discovery, especially the outreach efforts in our Bog Garden, I would like to present Wildrock with the Club Conservation Commendation. Next, I would like you to know a little about the good work of the Blue Ridge Homebuilders Association, a trade association involved in the building industry. Almost exactly a year ago, this organization enthusiastically rebuilt an extremely long and very dilapidated staircase at Booker T. Washington Park. When we met at the Bog Garden to assess the project, it was clear the steps needed to be rebuilt in their entirety. Over 4 weekend days and many, many, many buckets of rocks. This organization gave our community a safe way to move from one level of the park to the other, all without any payment or fanfare. For the significant contributions to rebuilding the Booker T. Washington Park staircase, allowing more people to enjoy this historically significant park, I would like to present the Blue Ridge Homebuilders Association with the club's Civic Improvement Commendation.
Good morning. I'm Victoria Pouncey, co-chair of today's event, along with Kim Corey. I'm so excited that you're able to join us for our program with Mark. It's going to be an amazing morning. Each and every one of your tickets is helping Albemarle Garden Club raise money for the important projects that Catherine and Dana spoke about. We thank you so much for this. We are also thankful to our wonderful group of patrons and sponsors of Design Forum 2023. We have many returning sponsors, a number of new ones, both local and national. We are supported by members of the interior design, landscape architecture, real estate, hospitality, luxury retail, and corporate communities. And I would like to give a special shout out to two sponsors who are supporting us because of their connection to Mark. Rizzoli, publisher of his books Beautiful and More Beautiful, and Schumacher, the storied fabric house which produces his stunning fabric collections. Please join me in thanking them all.
Good morning, I'm Fran Carden.
And I'm Claire Mellinger.
We are the Flower Show chairs.
Our flower show, Beautiful, has been a beautiful experience to say the least.
Our dedicated committee organized a fantastic flower show, and our exhibitors entered in 4 divisions: floral design, horticulture, photography, and needle arts. We used the chapter titles from Mark's book, Beautiful, for the class titles of each of the flower show divisions. Our exhibitors were inspired by Mark's inspiration. We hope that while you are walking through the show, you will discover something new about a plant, be inspired by photography, understand the language of floral design, and be in awe of the needle arts.
And you know what, Fran, it takes a lot of courage and talent to enter a flower show, but the thrill of receiving an award is really the icing on the cake. At the end of the day, though, sowing the seeds of garden knowledge in nature is our aim.
And now the awards for the flower show. 3 awards were given in each division. The People's Choice Award was voted on by the attendees. The Best in Show was awarded and decided by approved flower show judges. And Mark Sikes himself decided the Creativity Award.
The envelope, please. I've always wanted to say that. Here, can you?
Yes.
Okay. For the People's Choice Award for floral design, Barclay Lang and Hobby Coles. For the horticulture, the people could not really decide on one, so everybody voted for Class 5 in the dahlias. In the photography, shout out to Chrissy McNeely for her wonderful photograph of the rotunda. And then last but not least is Jennifer Koshart, who stitched up a beautiful, beautiful piece. Yes, in
Yes.
Blue or red? Blue.
I don't know.
I don't know. Me either. Okay, and then the Best in Show, which was done by the approved judges, floral design. Barclay Lang and Hobby Coles. In horticulture, Susan Lankenow and Fran Carden. And in photography, Karen Santos. And in needle arts, Jennifer Koshart. Can you tell that we all we like the same thing? Mark, he did his judging yesterday, and he selected for floral design Barclay Lang and Hobby Coles.
The trifecta.
In horticulture, Candy Crosby and Whitney Murphy. And in photography, Chrissy McNeely. And for the needle arts is Helen Hilliard.
And this was Mark's first time as a flower show judge. And Mark, we think you have some real potential. Thank you for judging for us. We hope you all enjoyed the flower show. It will be open until 2 o'clock today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kim Corey, co-chair of today's event, and now it is my pleasure to introduce Mark D. Sikes. Synonymous with a classic aesthetic and a timeless yet youthful style, his encouragement of an indoor and outdoor lifestyle and his iconic love of blue and white, Mark is a tastemaker. Based in Los Angeles, but working across the country, from the White House to the California coast, we are thrilled to have Mark join us today to be our 2023 Design Forum speaker. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I'll give you a hug. Oh, thanks. Awesome. Well, good morning. My mic's working, which is great. So it's wonderful to be back in beautiful Charlottesville and here with the Albemarle Garden Club. I want to specifically thank Kim and Victoria for their kindness. It's always fun and exciting to go to new places, and the most exciting thing is you meet great people that you would not have had the opportunity to meet before. So the last couple of days I've met some really fantastic people and made some new friends, which is wonderful. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about the things that inspire me in beauty. Okay. Well, I thanked everyone, so I am so happy to be here. In today's presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about what inspires me. I'm going to talk about my design process, how we create beauty for our clients. Some of our design signatures that you'll see in a lot of our work. A little bit about my new book, More Beautiful. We're going to look at homes from that book, and then I'll talk a little bit what's next. And there's going to be a lot of beautiful pictures for you to entertain you and keep you awake. So what's my philosophy around beauty? I think beauty is a restorer, it's a connector, it's a very important thing. I think the homes that we work on for our clients should reflect who they are, and it's my job and responsibility to execute their vision of how they want their homes to function and how they want to live in their homes. But I do believe that happiness can come from beauty and being surrounding yourself with what you love. And we want to provide an environment where people can prosper and enjoy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what inspires me. I have these, if you're on Instagram and if you follow Instagram, I like to say beauty is everywhere and beauty will save the day and make it beautiful. I think that all those things are very inspiring, but I really believe them. And I think I find beauty in the simplest things, mostly nature. I was talking to the ladies yesterday at lunch about, I was flying here and I looked outside and the window and just things that we look at every day, the blue sky and the clouds. You know, if you really look at them, it's pretty magical and it's pretty amazing, the world that we live in and what we get to enjoy. And it was really like kind of this, 5 minutes of like dreaming, but it was really great. But I also love things like blue and white, chinoiserie, fashion, still life. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that as well. So here are a few things that I love. I love big white houses. I love gardens. And I, of course, love flowers. I love travel and I love nature. About 5 years ago, I was able to go on a safari with my partner, Michael. And if you've never done that, I would highly recommend it. It was a life-changing experience. And when I think about like moments that really have inspired me, that trip in itself was very restorative. And it really not only was beautiful and amazing, but really kind of put things in perspective about the true circle of life, but it was really an amazing thing. I find my own home, my own sanctuary to be inspiring, specifically my garden. I love to go in my garden, mostly on the weekends, and just sit and with my dog. And it really is this kind of wonderful place for me to kind of like reconnect and to be able to think Sundays are my day of, like, I don't really do anything on Sundays, but it's actually my most creative day. And what I mean by that is I'm not doing anything, so my mind is free and open to have more creative thoughts. And I have more ideas on Sunday than you can even imagine, but most of those ideas come when I'm sitting in my garden. So all the gardens are very important. There are many iconic people that have inspired me from the time I was small, or as long as I can remember, to even today. I talk about them a lot on my social media as well. Some of those people, not a surprise, one of them is Jackie Kennedy. I think Jackie is such a classic, timeless beauty, but also did so much for America and so much for design. It's pretty remarkable if you ever study her, or really think the impact that she had at such a young age. At 33 years old, she was the first lady of the United States, and think about all the things that she did for our country from a design perspective and curating. It's just pretty remarkable. And this was before anyone had computers and cell phones. Just think about like being able to catalyze all that. Other people that inspire me, a lot of fashion designers inspire me, not for their fashion, but also for their lifestyle and their homes. A few of those are in this image is Bill Blass, Givenchy, that's Givenchy's partner, and Oscar. Bunny Mellon and Hubert are a great source of inspiration. Of course, Bunny Mellon, you all are very familiar with her because her farm isn't far from here, and I know that the farm has participated in this particular show. But so inspiring. We talked a lot about her yesterday, and I think what's so remarkable about Bunny is obviously she had immense wealth and was exposed to so much, but she had a really distinct style that really, I think, defines all-American in so many ways, just that mix of like really important pieces of art next to a Giacometti, next to a basket. I mean, it just really, the mix was so elegant, but it was also so personal, and I think that's what real style is. I mentioned Oscar de la Renta, his homes, his style has been a great source of inspiration in my work, and I think you could probably see in the lower image of his home in the Dominican Republic how that look and that style has really been a source of inspiration and has really permeated into my particular design work. Givenchy's home, Le Jonchette, in the south, well, all of his homes, but the home in the south of France, right outside Paris, his country home, Le Jonchette, is a great source of inspiration. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I'm building a little weekend place myself, and Le Jonchette is a great, it's very inspiring. And here is I guess it would be called the drawing room in Le Jonchette, and I think that this is a really incredible space. It's very vast and big, but what I love about this particular room is how it looks like it's lived in. You know, and you can also see that the room is filled with things that are probably things that he loves, books and papers and objects, and probably things that he's found and traveled. But I think that's a real room. There's, of course, beautiful rooms are very important, but rooms that you can live in and represent all the things you love, I think, are also super important, or the most important. This is another storied home that I'm been so inspired by and a huge fan. This is La Fiorentina in the south of France. And I was just in the south of France for the first time a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And we were in a car and I was like, we have to find this house. And we did. I literally scaled walls. I went through a cemetery. I climbed fences. I did everything possible just to get a glimpse. And I did get a glimpse, but it was really, my partner was like, you have lost your mind. But I had to feel it, and I did, so I saw it. I mean, I spent 3 hours doing that. It was just like, it was crazy. Wicker, I love Wicker. I love Marianne Galli and her work with, over the years with Renzo Monardino. I love that whole bohemian style, and that also has been a huge inspiration to our work. Which feels also in some ways very California. And then Michael Taylor, an amazing source of inspiration, a California designer the bottom right room is a room that he did. That whole feeling and essence, which also feels very Ralph, and you can see the similarities have been great sources of inspiration for me. One of my dearest friends and mentor, Bunny Williams, which I know she's also been here at this event, her and John, her husband, John Roselli, have been not only great friends, but a great source of inspiration. And you can tell we all love blue and white. And Michael and I have had a chance to spend a lot of time in this house over the years in the Dominican Republic during Thanksgiving. They no longer live there, but it's really magical. And there's just no way to describe how those experiences have influenced and inspired us. Last but not least, Billy Baldwin, Mark Hampton, two great American decorators without a question are at the top of my list. Their work is so inspiring, but also so timeless. I mean, you look at, I think it's so important that, well, it is for me, that if I'm designing a space or a home or a room, that it looks great today, represents the people that live there, but I also want it to have looked good 30 years ago, and I want it to look just as good 30 years from now. So I think both of these gentlemen and their work really defines that. So I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about some of our design signatures, and I don't mean that in an egotistical way, but there are things that we use in our design over and over and over again, and they just kind of work for us, and I feel like those layers help create a home and help make it feel comfortable and inviting. And what I really want everyone to take away from this is that, we have these design signatures, but they can translate into any style of home. They can translate into something that's more coastal or modern, or something a little more Mediterranean, or something that's a little bit more traditional. But these are just our foundational things that we love. So what are some of those things? So here's I don't know if you all have gotten my latest book, More Beautiful, but if you haven't, you can. Inside the book jacket is all this grid of pictures. So I had so much photography for this book, we couldn't put it all in the book. So I was like, we gotta figure out a way to get more pictures in. So we use this as a way to see. And it's really, I think, a great representation of the details and all these things that we love to use, the baskets and the natural fibers and the books and the boxes and the blue and white. So this is just a great expression of the things I love, our signatures and details. So what are some of these things? I mentioned blue and white, boxes, bowls, books. I always say anything that starts with B is good. We're known for indoor-outdoor living. We love wicker, we love striped durries, we love chinoiserie. We're huge advocates of trim. I think we're Samuel & Sons' best customer in probably all of America. I know for a fact we are, which makes me very proud. Baskets, hurricane, natural fiber rugs, and of course antiques. I think that in our work we try to leave space not only for a client's existing antiques, something that they might already have that are bringing to a new project, but we want to leave space that we can acquire over time. Really amazing things. I always have a rule like every room needs 3, but that's really important to us. And I know that's important to this community as well. So I'm also always asked about what our design process is. So I thought I might share. There might be a lot of designers in the room, and share how we do things. Doesn't mean it's the right way to do things. So don't leave here and do it exactly this way because it might not work. But it works for us, and it's something that we pride ourselves on. And I think being a decorator, everyone thinks that it's all creative and glamorous. Well, it's not. There's probably 20 or 30% of it that's creative, and pretty much 70, 80% of it is your process and your systems and your organization. And truly the art of executing creativity. So when we start working with a client, in most cases, there's some type of renovation where there's an architect involved or a contractor involved, or it might just be decorating, but most of the time there are some planned developments that have to take place. A lot of our projects are ground up construction, so it's a big, long process. So the very first thing that we do when we're starting to work on any new project is I asked, can I see images of the house, or do you have plans for the house, or whatever it may be, but that is always our starting point. And studying the plans, working on the plans, and doing furniture floor plans. So early on in the process, I just mentioned this, we create furniture floor plans to define the flow of the spaces. It's really important that we work with the client on how each room is going to function. You know, people have very specific needs when it comes to TVs, when it comes to bed sizes. And we really spend a lot of time on making sure that the house is going to function, not only be beautiful, it will be beautiful, but it will be function for them. We also, pretty early in the process, we try to solicit as much information from the client as possible in regards to things that they love. Are there any images that they love? Be careful what you ask for, because sometimes you get a lot of images, but it's important to make sure that you're listening to them and hearing from them what they might love. I'm always so proud when I ask if you have any images, what you love, and they're just like pictures of our work. And I'm like, great. But I welcome any pictures. But I do think it's important, because if you don't do it, then it's going to come up later on. So we do our furniture floor plans. Then we always like to have a color and fabric meeting where we bring the client into the office, or we go on site and we really just talk about what's the palette for the house, the paints, what are the key fabrics we want to use throughout the house. I think a home should tell a story, and I think a home should flow. And I think that part of the process is super important, because you want things to feel connected. I think it really does change the mood and the feeling of a house for it to have a rhythm. I think every room should be obviously interesting and unique and special, but there should be some type of connection. So we use the color and fabric meeting as the way to like paint that picture. Then later on in the process, we take our furniture floor plans, we take our color and fabrics, we take any like existing pieces of furniture they might have, and we really create very distinct mood boards for every room, where it's super clear that, you know, this is if it's sofa A on the floor plan, here's the fabric that's going to go on sofa A, and this is the tear sheet for the sofa, and this is the trim, and this is the pillow. Really in a lot of detail, and throughout the whole process, obviously there's options. So I'm going to show you all some examples of some of our furniture floor plans and our mood boards, and then how the project kind of ended up turning out. I'm going to use an example of a home in LA, the Pacific Palisades. And I was talking to the ladies yesterday. There's a client, well, we have a lot of clients that we've worked with multiple times, but there was a very special client. It was one of my first project clients. We worked on their home in Montecito first, and then we did their home in Malibu, and then we did their home in Pacific Palisades. And if you think about that, all those homes are just 2 hours away from each other. It's super weird, but they're really nice, down-to-earth people, but they just have a really fabulous life. But they're great. I love them so much. So anyway, this is this is the home that I'm using as examples of one of their particular homes. So this is the breakfast room floor plan on the left. First of all, this house was like 80s construction, borderline on a little bit hideous, very Italianate, but we were able to, I was really inspired by Provence and kind of like, how do we like bring provincial kind of details and fabrics and textures? And we worked with a contractor, not an architect, and kind of updating the house with beautiful plaster and beautiful tiles and beautiful ironwork. And it looks like a house now that's been around for 70 or 80 years, which is really incredible. But the inspiration for this house was Provence. So this is the breakfast room, very basic floor plan, round table that seats 8, some bar stools. And on the mood board to the right, you can see to the left is our drapery fabric. In the middle is kind of some inspiration. We added a lot of blue and white tile into the space. The center is the hanging fixture and whatnot. So anyway, on our mood boards, we not only have our specific tear sheets and the fabrics, but we also have inspiration pictures. And I had mentioned a client's previous item. So you see the bottom middle picture and the left middle picture. That's the client was existing her table and bar stools and chairs, and we did reuse them. We just refinished them and probably just made sure that they were a little more updated, and then we added new fabrics to them. So this is an example of how we mix in the client's existing things. So then this is the end result, pictures that are in the new book, More Beautiful, but you can kind of see, I'm not gonna go back and forth, but you can kind of get the feeling of like how the mood board translated into the images. And I'm always so proud when I see this work that we've like put on paper and on a board, and then later, 8 months later or a year later, how it kind of ends up being. And it pretty is 85%, 90% exactly like how we had planned. And I think that's really cool because the client can then really get a visual of what their home might feel like and look like. We usually don't do a furniture floor plan for kitchens because there's not much furniture in the kitchen. But here's a picture of this kitchen that was next to the breakfast room. And just to highlight some of the things that I had mentioned that we had done to the house to give it some more architectural integrity, we added those beams, we refinished all their existing cabinets, painted them, but also put a glaze on them. They were a brown stained wood before. We changed all the floors to this beautiful terracotta with blue and white inset tiles, and of course the backsplash is all new. So we kind of transformed the kitchen cosmetically, but I look at that kitchen and I think that looks like a kitchen for Provost, right? Yeah. It's pretty fabulous. Okay, so this is a furniture floor plan of the dining room. The dining room is so hard to explain, but it's one of those houses that you walk in and there's like this big open cutout in the wall and you're looking into the dining room, which just gives me hives. But so we're like, okay, what do we do here? So to make it feel better. So I said, well, let's try to make it feel tinted, or let's do something that is about the fabric and, having the swag as a fabric to kind of more soften those opening in those spaces. And that was the inspiration. And I was also very inspired, I mentioned earlier, Renzo Mondardino. So Brunswick and Fee has this amazing fabric that has 3 components. So you can see the fabrics on the mood board. There's a big, large paisley panel. It's a 54-inch wide by probably 110 inches panel. Then there's a small all-over print, and then there's a paisley. So we took this fabric program of 3 styles and kind of like created this very kind of layered, tinted kind of dining room space. The mood board has her existing dining room table, her existing dining room chairs. However, I didn't like the proportions of the dining room chairs, so we cut them down. I gave it a little bit of a scallop. We added some new host and hostess chairs, but then she had, on the bottom left-hand style, she had a cabinet existing from like 30 years ago, and I needed a pair, so I had our furniture maker make a duplicate of it, but we used something that she had originally, and then we added it. So anyway, that's the furniture floor plan, that's the mood board, and this is how the space turned out. So that big opening in the middle is the hole I was talking about. And we added these panels. That was her existing table, her existing chairs that I changed the shape of them and added buttons. The cabinet on the left was hers before, but it was brown. But we refinished it, added some gilding detail, and then my furniture maker made, I don't know actually if it was the right or the left one, but you get the feeling. And I think what's so really cool about this room, there's a lot going on, but there's also something super simple about it. And you can kind of see what we did to add interest is I cut the fabrics, I made borders, and I took the panels off, and you can see how on the walls it's all pieced together. So over the fireplace mantle is the big 54-inch panel that's cut, but you can see the big pattern repeat. And then we used the borders all the way around the top and the wainscot, and then I filled it in with the ditzy in spaces, and all of that is kind of pieced together with Samuel & Sons trims. But anyway, super fun. Here's the living room furniture floor plan. Inspiration on the left-hand side. It's a double-story living room with a catwalk. Again, could be awful, but we made it amazing. And some of the fabrics and some of the furniture. On the bottom right, I just want to point out is an inspiration picture from Bunny Williams. That was a project she did in Palm like 25 years ago. And then this is how the space turned out. So pretty amazing. and beautiful. And I hope that what's resonating is some of the original inspiration that I talked about, the Billy Baldwin, La Fiorentina, some of those beautiful spaces. You can start seeing how that inspiration has permeated into our work. So this last image is a lot of different pictures from throughout the house. I just highlighted like 4 or 5 rooms, but you can see when you put little vignettes of pictures from throughout the house, if you put them together, it doesn't matter if it's the upstairs bathroom or the laundry room, it does tell a story. And also you can hopefully see some of the details that I mentioned earlier that we love and we use over and over, whether it's the blue and white or whether it's aspects of wicker, natural fiber, striped duries. But I think these images, when they all come together, they tell a story. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about my book, and we're going to go through More Beautiful. I can't believe More Beautiful has been out for 3 years now, which is crazy. So to me, this is all very familiar, but hopefully you'll love it. So my new book, More Beautiful, is a continuation of my first book, Beautiful. Beautiful, the first book, was more based around color stories. More Beautiful is around different styles of homes and highlights things that I mentioned, signatures that kind of carry throughout, whether it's Mediterranean, coastal, or country, but we're going to kind of explore those particular chapters. And first, we're going to start with the traditional chapter, Bright Colors and Southern Charms. And in this chapter, some of the projects that are highlighted are from Birmingham, Alabama, and a project in Montecito, California. So trying to take traditional from 2 different coasts in 2 different parts of the country. So when I think about traditional interiors, what do I think about? I think about classic design, I think about heirlooms, I think about layered, I think about saturated color, I think about pattern, I think about trims and lots of custom details, antiques, plants, flowers. I just think those are all things that I think feel traditional to me. And, you know, when I think about things in our signatures that can be mixed into that type of style, it's pretty much everything. But in this particular chapter, you'll see chinoiserie, you'll see trims, you'll see antiques, wicker, boxes, hurricanes, etc. So like I mentioned before, this is a home in Birmingham, Alabama called Breeze Hill Farm. The client had those chairs. Those were her grandmother's chairs. And we used them downstairs in the lower family room, kind of like aligning the walls. But I love this home is just layered with lots of family heirlooms and different things that she had already had and inherited. And this particular client loved color and loved pattern. So this is the living room, and I think this is a really great example of how traditional design can look fresh and can also feel young, not so stodgy. But this room is a mix of things, has things that, again, that she had inherited. It's also filled with collections. She had a rose medallion collection that we kind of used throughout. But what I think when I look at this room that makes it feel fresh and modern and more of today is the natural fiber rug. It's the more unusual shaped ottoman in the center of the room that makes it feel a little bit lighter and airier and not so heavy with darker woods. There's a mix of iconic Cowton and Tout floral fabric that's on the window treatments and on the sofa, but there's also things like icots and cottons and linens that give it a fresh look. Here are some just close-up images of some of the things I talked about, but hopefully that this mix of things you can kind of see. It feels very traditional and classic, but there is something that feels fresh and contemporary about it. I hate the word modern, so if I say modern, it's painful for me to say it, but I do think spaces need to feel relevant and fresh. But still feel timeless. So this is the dining room. We used an incredible Gracie wallpaper. And this was the client's existing commode or break front. And she also had this beautiful collection of tableware that we use, and I think it's so great. All the plants, part of that styling, but this is really, she does really have like potted plants sprinkled throughout this particular space. And again, here are some just details of the space. So this is the sunroom, and I think this is a really great example of not only things that I personally love, but of a space that feels traditional and classic, but does feel fresh and new. And I think about like, what are the things that make it feel like really fresh? Well, it's like we'd have pretty much one Colfax fabric that's kind of on everything. There is modern art that's mixed to the wall. We painted the floors, which I think makes it feel kind of new. I do a lot of Parsons tables, right? Like upholster them and then lacquer them. And the game table is lacquered. And then some of the timeless elements are obviously the wicker, the iconic Colfax fabric. There's some Sister Parish mixed in, but I think this is also a great example of a traditional room that feels fresh. Here are some details from the space. So next we're going to talk about coastal. And the subtitle is Blue and White Forever. You all heard me say that, I'm sure you have. And this chapter is basically is just basically a riff on blues and coastal textures and neutrals. And when I think about coastal, I think about the blue sky and the blue water. And water has some green tones in it, and then there's the sand. And then in the texture of the sand, I think that you feel like there's texture, which feels like natural fiber. It feels like there's rattan and wicker. So all those things are super inspiring when I'm working on coastal properties, which we work on a lot. So we're going to highlight in this particular chapter a project in Malibu. And believe it or not, this is the second home of the client I was mentioning earlier that we did the Pacific Palisades home. So you can see another version of a home that they lived in, but still in the color palette that she loves. So here's a little vignette of like little details from this particular house. And when I think about coastal, I think about like, it's about the textures of finishes and materials. It's about graphic color and art, a carefree atmosphere. There's a casualness to it, a lived-in aspect to it. We love wicker, rattan, bamboo. And I love the texture of different woods, specifically ceruged oaks and weathered woods. Things that are signatures that fit great into this particular style of home, of course, is the wicker, the durries, the baskets, the books, the indoor-outdoor living. And I think you can kind of see that feeling throughout these images. And again, I hate the word modern, but I think when you do look at this, it is kind of a modern take, feels like a modern take on traditional design and classic design and very coastal. And those modern elements, I think, are the things that I just mentioned. So I've already mentioned this is a Malibu home of a very special client. It's their weekend home. It's very casual. It's very relaxed. So here, I was at lunch yesterday, and someone at lunch said, I was looking at your website, I love that house in Malibu. Well, this is the house. And I was explaining over the lunch that, again, my client has great taste, but a lot of the homes were from the 80s, and this was an 80s house that was built on the beach, and it had really no character whatsoever. And we did not do a huge renovation, but we did a cosmetic renovation. So we painted the brick fireplace, we added beams to the ceiling. You'll see more throughout, but really gave it this fresh update. It's amazing. If you ever want to just change the space, just paint it white. I mean, it really is a miracle what it can do. It can really change. My offices aren't great, but once we paint everything white, the floors and the ceilings and everything, it just feels so fresh and amazing. But white is the trick to beauty, I think. So this is the living room. Here are some little moments from the space, but you can see we really embraced books and amazing bowls that are from amazing artisans, incredible fun art, lots of texture, woven materials that give it that patina. But you look at this and you think, oh, wow, that looks like I think that looks like a room that might be near the beach. This is the primary bedroom that's upstairs, and it really really, the color palette, the textures really emulate what you look at when you look outside. So when you go out that window, you're looking at the Pacific Ocean and the sand and the blue sky. And I really think that feeling is what you feel when you're in this particular room. Another thing I should mention about the space is the mix of materials. It's really hard to see, but there's a lot of beautiful woods. The Surus oak bedside tables, this amazing mid-century side table is a mix of stones and marbles and beautiful unlacquered brasses. But there's just really beautiful textures. There's chagrin, there's mother of pearl, there's these really beautiful textures in this room. And I always say, no matter what space that we're designing or what room we're designing, I think when you walk into the room, you should feel calm and serene and beauty. But when you revisit it, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth time, you should discover new things you never saw before. And so the things that you discover are those things I just mentioned, the different materials, the different textures, the different finishes. Those are things that are all nice surprises. Here are some little moments from this particular room. So for this particular project, the primary bedroom had all these bookshelves, which is highly unusual. And in most cases, I probably would put doors on them so you could have like concealed storage, but I thought it would be really beautiful to use the bookshelves to create some warmth. So we commissioned this amazing potter to make a series of I think there was 32 or 33 different pots to line the bookshelves. And when I went in to meet with her to start talking about creative, I just brought a handful of sand. I said, I want it to feel like sand, and I want it to feel like different textures of sand, wet sand, dry sand, white sand, all that have the pot. And I do think she did a really great job on having the pots feel like sand. And that was the whole idea, was bringing the outside in. Here's the second floor landing. It's hard to explain what this looked like before, but it was really bad. There was a wall here, and it was just, so we completely took the wall down. I designed this railing, probably not my best work, but it is pretty cool. The railing, we painted the floors. I put this really cool wallpaper on this one wall that feels like wood. So it's this kind of trick that you feel like it's like a driftwood wall, but it's not. It's actually a wallpaper. But again, all design elements, there's something simple and clean about it, but they are things that kind of reinforce the message of the indoor-outdoor living. And here is just some really beautiful moments and textures in the space. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the country chapter, from rustic to modern. The palette is greens and blues, and palettes of the projects in this chapter are the gardens, in particular kitchen gardens, and the inspiration of those and how you bring that feeling in the house and what the color palettes. And then another project in this chapter is from Napa. And of course, Napa has got the most beautiful landscape and the most beautiful cues of nature and how to bring that feeling into the house. So this is the project in little moments of a project in Napa that we did. And the green and blue color palette is derived from outside, but there's aubergines and there's really beautiful wheat golds. And I don't know if you all have spent much time in Napa, but those colors really resonate. We wanted to bring those colors and feeling inside. And this is a young family. They love color. The gentleman, the couple that live in this house, he has a huge creative position at Apple. So they're really just cool people. They have an amazing art collection. And so they are really fun to work with. And I'm working on a third home with them right now, which is really, really exciting. So when I think about country living, I think about nature, I think about cozy, relaxed, I think about rooms and spaces being comfortable, inviting. I also think about the different textures or the reclaimed woods and the farmhouse feeling, rattan, iron, industrial accents. But those are the things I think of when I think about spaces in the country and elements that can be brought into the interiors to make it feel connected. So this is the entryway for the the home in Napa. This was one of the key fabrics that we used, which is from Sewn, but you could see that mix of blues and greens. But there is something that feels kind of country about it, but then also feels like fresh and unique. And, you know, some of the tried and true things that we love, the Dury rugs and the beautiful woods. I also feel like in this particular space, the white plaster lights really like stand out. So you can't really, unfortunately, this picture is really blown out, but if you were looking outside that glass window and really saw what was out there, it's all wine, it's all wine grapes and beautiful mountains and blue skies. And this particular day we were shooting, it was the angle of the light was blown out. But anyway, that feeling when you look outside, it's exactly what it feels like when you look inside. So all of the different textures and the different palette and the different furnishings were inspired by what was outside. And in this room, you can see the hero fabric, which is on the chairs, which is amazing. There's beautiful trims, there's antiques. We did a lot of special things on lampshades for this particular project. A lot of woven materials, not necessarily wicker, but woven like jutes and ropes, which you can see on the front dining room chairs. The client has an incredible art collection. A few of those pieces are highlighted here. But hopefully these details just kind of emulate some of the things I mentioned. That steel door on the bottom left, that's the wine room. So it's kind of fun. We created this like wine room with the same door that's on the windows that are across from it. And across from it is this particular space that you go out to, and it's kind of an indoor-outdoor room. Those windows all open up so you really feel like you're in an indoor-outdoor space. And I think you can see a better view of what the vineyards look like outside there. But this is like where the family lives and spends most of their time. And there's the pool right outside. But anyway, it's very connected. It's very comfortable. It's very inviting. You feel like you're indoors, but you also feel like you're outside. And here's just a few moments from that particular space. The books, the boxes, all the things that we love are mixed in. I've just threw this in because I think this is a really fun picture. This is the boys and daughters. They're older now. This is like 4 years ago, but they're teenagers. But the girls' room is on the left and the boys' room is on the right, and they share a Jack and Jill bath. And what I think is really fun about this picture is you see how there's a boy space and a girl space, but the color palette, there's something about they feel connected, and they feel like they're one story, but they're very distinctively different stories and different people live in those rooms. But I think it's a really beautiful illustration of storytelling and connecting spaces. A few more images from both of those rooms. The daughter's room is on the right, the boy's room is the green. We do a lot of fun things. I mean, I could go on and on, but we wallpaper ceilings sometimes, and it just depends on the architect. But there's a lot of really beautiful design details in these spaces that you might not notice when you first visit the space or first look at the picture, but hopefully over time, new details arise. This is a really just fun game room / TV room where they spend a lot of time. There's a lot of mid-century elements mixed in that I think create the modern element for this particular style of house. The art is fantastic, of course, and then the mid-century pieces. And here's a few more little moments from that particular house. Okay, so next we're going to talk about Mediterranean. So if I had to pick my favorite style of house, I think besides a more traditional, classic Georgian, Greek revival, that'd be my most favorite. But then Mediterranean homes I just love. And I love decorating them. They have a good feeling about them. They're also kind of easy to decorate because you shouldn't do that much on them. And you could do things with tiles and paint and materials, but there's not a lot of need for wallpaper and different things because the architecture and the plaster walls are what's important. This particular project was in Montecito. The color palette is red, corals, and neutrals and blues. The subtitle is An Adventure at Home. So this on the right is this incredible Moroccan garden. Indoor-outdoor space. And we found this antique painted ceiling in Italy and brought it over. And the details you will see in a minute, the colors are what inspired the space. And you think about indoor-outdoor living, you think, oh, you have to do all outdoor furniture. Well, we didn't. We did, we mixed in some old pieces, some Moroccan wood tables, because there is something beautiful if it's in the right environment about how things can wear and weather and be worn over time, even with the natural elements. All the fabrics are performance fabrics except for the vintage textiles, but there is that great mix, which is counterintuitive, but it's actually super beautiful in this particular house. So I mentioned the ceiling, so that's the ceiling in the middle image, and that was antique, so you can see how we brought the palette from that antique ceiling into some of the decorative elements. When I think of Mediterranean style, I think about like kind of this ethnic, more bohemian, more found, traveled kind of sensibilities. And when I think about those things, I think about inlay, I think about tiles, I think about batiks, I think about vintage textiles. Those are the things that I think really speak to this particular style of house, and I think these pictures also speak to that style. Here's a little vignette of the space. This is another view of that Moroccan indoor-outdoor garden. This is looking from the outside, looking in to the space, but gives you a more view of what the furnishings are like. But again, when I was saying earlier about the simplicity of Mediterranean design, there's such a range and eclectic mix of the furnishings, but the foundation of the spaces is very simple. Just the plaster and the iron windows and doors and just the very simple iron lighting. It really is about to me, it's about the furnishings. This is the entrance to the house. So the entryway is like huge. It's like 35 feet. It was just massive. So it's like, oh my God, what are we gonna do in this space? So we did a blue and white tiled wainscot, just a simple terracotta floor. That what looks like that's actually just that on the wall. I'm blanking right now. Tapestry. Thank you. What looks like a beautiful 300-year tapestry is not. It's actually a wallpaper panel from Excel that we had mounted on a canvas. And this particular, it's a double-story entryway, so we have this in 2 or 3 different spaces, the same type of thing, but it's a different pattern. But anyway, that's like a wonderful way of, getting that feeling, but not necessarily having to do the found tapestries. But the antiques, the tables, actually the table in the center I had made, but then the Italian commode, obviously up against the wall, is antique. And I just think that's just super beautiful. I feel like that looks like it's been there for 100 years. And it hasn't, because it's a fake tapestry. This is the living room. Again, I think it's a good example of what feels like authentic Mediterranean design, but there is something that feels fresh and clean about it, and modern, if you will. And I think it's about the mix and the restraint. And there's not a lot of pattern in this particular space. It's just a lot of texture, a lot of warmth. And it's a very, very, very large room. So again, this is where the furniture floor plans come super important of how you're going to use the space. So there's multiple seating areas. You can't see it, but on the other side of this room, there's a huge dining room table. But it's a really I guess a great room, if you will. I hate great rooms, but it's a great room, if you will, that we made feel warm and hopefully appealing and comfortable. Here's a lot of beautiful details from this space. So, again, I think you would look at this and I hope you would think, oh, that looks like a really old place in Portugal. Well, it's not. It's new construction in Montecito on the ocean. But I think it's about that curated mix of elements. I think this house looks very cool. It's very cool for Mark Sikes, but it's got a very eclectic sensibility. And because I'm speaking to a lot of garden people, I think that hopefully throughout all these images you've seen the importance of plants and flowers and nature, bringing that inside, what that can do for spaces. This is the kitchen. The kitchen is as big as the great room. It's massive. To kind of make it feel warmer, we did 3 different islands. You can't really see the third island, but we did 2 custom wood islands on the ends. And then in the middle is a log canoe kind of island. And then a log canoe stove. But there are found pieces. That cabinet in the back is Italian. I think it's like 128 inches tall that we found. But we tried to find some old things mixed into the dining room as well. Here's some moments from the library. The library has a found, obviously, mantle, a found wood floor that we had reused and put in this space. You can see the floor, a better example of the floor here in the left image. We did not do a rug on the floor in this room because we really wanted the floor to stand out. But there is something warm and cozy in this particular space. I think it's because of the velvets and the weaves and the textures and the wool paisleys. This is the office. The powder room. The powder room and the office are on distinctly different sides of the house, but I love putting these images together because it's so fun to see how a house can tell a story, even though the rooms might not have been exactly near each other. And then this is the primary bedroom upstairs. Again, looking at the Pacific Ocean, we wanted it to feel like it felt like the ocean, so we were really inspired by the sand, the dryness of Montecito, the colors of what that particular beach feels like, bringing that inside. That's a found mantle as well. The bed is positioned kind of strangely from the picture, but it's in center. You walk into the back of the bed with a console, and the bed faces out. So when the clients are in bed, they're looking at the ocean and the sunsets and the sunrises. But it's pretty incredible. And then this is just a little bit of a collage of moments from that particular part of the house. The bathroom, her closet, and you can see the bed facing out towards the window. Okay, so the last chapter of the book is called Beautiful, and it highlights my personal home, which I think is super beautiful. And the subtitle is appropriate, Living with What You Love. And I think my home and all of your homes probably emulate who we are as people and how we live. But as I share some images of my house, you can see some of those, again, those really important influences. Oscar and Bunny and Bunny Williams and Bunny Mellon and Givenchy. There's these things that I cannot help, but it's not purposeful, but when I look back, I'm like, oh, that has really resonated in my house, and you see those influences. Here's a little bit of a scattering of pictures from our particular house. So again, these are just things I personally love, but things that have also worked themselves into our work. The collection of boxes, the books, the hurricanes, the blue and white, the textures. Really kind of a fun, quick story. So that wallpaper chinoiserie panel was a Gracie design that was in Dita Blair's house in DC that Billy Baldwin did. And I always just loved these images of it. I loved the images of it back in the day, and then it was just recently, about 8 years ago, was photographed for the Wall Street Journal, WHA magazine, but of her house in New York. But those panels had moved. So I was finding them, and then anyway, I found out that Gracie had actually originally made them, and then they had been discontinued. So Gracie, I worked with them on kind of recreating them for our house and framing them, and I really just treasure them. So they were formerly in the living room, and they've kind of made their way into the dining room. This is our living room, and what do I say? It is all the things that I love. I mean, all the things we've been talking about. That mix. Our books, our collections, our plants. There's so much here that tells the story of my personal life as well as our work. Your little moments. I probably have 5,000 boxes. I mean, I have so many boxes. I always am challenged how do I get them all out? But that was one way. The thing that I find super special about my home is the garden and the connection of the garden to the interior spaces. And this is a great image, I think, that shows how the garden sits off of the living room, and then a detail of the particular garden. So we live in the Hollywood Hills, and when we first moved in, we had a level and terrace, the back property, and I think there were 12 trucks of dirt that left the space to create these terraces. but it's a very interesting home because it is a very traditional footprint of a 2-story house, warehouse, but set in the Hollywood Hills. But the way we terrace the garden, I think you actually feel like you're in a more traditional kind of space. But that's the little bit of the story about that. So here's a picture of just the garden itself. That's where I spend Sundays. Topiaries, obviously, not only because they're beautiful, but bunny melon or topiaries are a great source of inspiration. Even all the things we love come outside, the blue and white, and the blue and white porcelain, but also the blue and white fabrics and the textures and the old and the new. That table is a beautiful stone table from the early 1900s that I put outside. It's just a mix of things. This is looking from the living room into the entryway into the dining room. Remember what I said about what white paint could do? So these floors, we bleached them when we first moved in like 14 times, then we whitewashed them. So they feel like they're white, but pretty much everything in the house is white. Little moments from our dining room. So there's those great Gracie panels, but the room, blue and white check, which is, you might notice that's the kind of the cue in the new book, the end papers, the wicker, all the things that we love. This is my library upstairs in my dressing room, and those bookshelves are holding about 30 years of magazines that I have drug my whole life from apartment to apartment to house. And during COVID, or actually before COVID, when I started a blog, I don't want to get into all that, but I scanned so many images from those magazines and those books, and they're really special to me. They're like my children. Here's just some little moments from that room. One of my favorite fabrics of all time is that Perry Frey toile de Nantes. If you can see it better. Well, it's on the slipper chair, but it's really great. Okay, this is our kitchen/family room again. Had so many books, I didn't know what to do with them, so we built bookshelves in the kitchen and filled them up. In the kitchen, that's my grandfather's clock. He used to sit over his chair. So there's all these really special mementos that are also mixed in to the house. So that's pretty much of an overview of our design signatures, our design philosophy on beauty, and a little bit of a glimpse into our book. But we are working on so many amazing, exciting things. This is a picture of the Kip Space Show House that we did 3 years ago. We're about to do another Kip Space Show House in Dallas. So I'm really excited about that. That'll be opening in September. We're working on our 3rd book that will be coming out next fall. So you all should have me back. And it'll be a continuation of the story that we've already told with Beautiful and More Beautiful. And I'm really excited about that. And seeing those projects come to life. And we are working on many new collaborations. Samuel & Sons trims we're doing some more fabric collections with Schumacher. This particular room of the Kip Space Show House from a few years ago is filled with Schumacher fabrics, filled with my Chaddock furniture, but also filled with beautiful antiques. But I think this room really completely represents so much about who I am and what our firm is. I love it, and hopefully with this picture you can also see all that inspiration that I talked about earlier, whether it's Billy Baldwin or La Fiorentina. You can kind of see that come to life in some of our current and modern work. We're also celebrating, or last year we celebrated our 10-year anniversary of my design firm. So it's been this complete roller coaster. Feels like yesterday, but then also feels like 50 years ago. But celebrating 10 years has been a really amazing time, not only to reflect on things, but also for it to set goals for the future and things that we want to accomplish. So on a little bit of a deeper level, I think that we all probably feel we're living in weird times, not only politically, but obviously things that are going on in the world. Not to bring things down, but it's just so horrific to think about what just recently happened in the Middle East. And it really can be depressing. But I do think sometimes we have to look past those things and look for things that give us hope and give us like energy. And I do think beauty and design does that. You might have a completely different political ideology than someone, but you might connect on a piece of art. You might connect on a beautiful room. And isn't that like amazing that there could be something like that can bring us together? Because there's a lot of things now that don't bring us together. And I really hope that that's the message you take away from today, not all the pretty rooms, but that the importance of beauty. And it really how it can restore us, it can connect us. We talked about that a lot. We talked about that a lot yesterday. And it is powerful. And it's like, so great when you meet people and you can kind of like connect on, you don't know anything about each other, but you can connect on beauty and you can talk about beauty. And it's just such a testament. This event last night, today, is such a testament of people coming together who love gardens and who love beauty, hopefully who love blue and white. But anyway, it's been just a joy to be here, and thank you for having me, and keep up the good work. All that you all do is so amazing. So thank you, everybody.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. So Mark has graciously agreed to answer some questions. So last night we polled our partygoers, and we have a few questions that we're going to ask him. And the first one is if you could recommend some go-to simple things in decor that we could replicate in our home. And I know the painting something white is a great idea, the power of paint. But if you can give one or two more things that make a big impact with little effort. Sure.
Well, white paint is a big one. I also think I think when you're designing your own personal space, it can get really overwhelming and confusing. So I would advise just finding something you love and sticking with it. So one little trick that I always do to kind of make a room not only beautiful but chic and comfortable is if you take one fabric that you love, just put it on everything. Don't try to mix in solids or don't try to mix in patterns. Just take one fabric and put it on everything. And I think that's an amazing trick that will always look timeless and elegant. So besides white paint, pick a fabric.
That's a great one. Okay, so from reading your first book, you talk about a chance encounter with a famous Hollywood person, Nancy Meyers. And I think most people are just in love with the set of Something's Gotta Give. But what other movies are inspiring to you, whether it be from maybe the 1930s glamour or the 1960s? Do you find inspiration in film?
Oh, totally. I mean, I could go on and on about that, but there's obviously, there's this whole we just recently went to the south of France, so I was kind of obsessed with To Catch a Thief and all of those Alain Delon movies. So all that has been something that's been really in my head recently, specifically. But I also love all of the movies and the TV shows about the English aristocrats, the royalty and those homes and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's so much inspiration that comes from film. And from beautiful sets, but specifically right now, I think it's movies about the south of France. I actually, if you not even watched Catch the Thief, if you all ever watched Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, funny movie, but really beautiful sets as well.
Yeah, To Catch a Thief
in south of France
is a classic. I love that movie. Okay, the last question is, Jackie Kennedy, I think, is really a style icon for most of us. How does it feel being involved with the White House and Blair House, which was a passion project for her during her limited time there?
Well, it's very surreal, to say the least. So we've been honored and to help with some rooms in the White House and some personal spaces, and it's been just a joy and a thrill, and there's no way to describe it other than being surreal. But walking through the halls of such an amazing place and home, makes you so proud to be an American, and there's just so many beautiful things. Specifically, the scale of the White House, it's not super big. It feels, there's an intimacy to it that I think is like really like special and like cool, and I think it really kind of like helps define American style. But I did mention a little bit earlier Jackie Kennedy. Not only, I'm like completely obsessed, like in a really, like, I mean, it's like, I always have been. And my mother kind of looks like Jackie Kennedy, so I think I always had this kind of little bit like of a weird, you know, I just find her so beautiful, maybe because I just find my mother so beautiful, but you know, it's really incredible what she did at a very young age, being the First Lady, you know, having the knowledge and the ability to not only rely on her own instincts, but to like surround herself with like Budding Mellon and, you know, all these different people that contributed to the way she entertained, the way that she decorated the White House, the way that her personal style, like she just was really, I think, pretty incredible. And it's such a great example of American style and of you know, doing some great things for the country. So the way that she put the White House Historical Association together, the way that she put, there was also so much knowledge. This woman also was smart enough to realize she welcomed photography around her, because I think she realized that the photography would tell the story long before she was gone or after she was gone. And isn't that kind of incredible? Like for all of us, it'd be like a nuisance. And we're so used to our phones now, but she was smart enough to welcome photography. And that's why we have all those such beautiful images, I think, to like look on and to be inspired by. But I could go on, but thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're so sweet.
Thank you for being so generous, not only with your time, but all of those beautiful images. I just want to say again, thank you all for being here. We do have some refreshments for you to enjoy outside, as well as all of the shopping that can still be done with our vendors. I might also encourage you to visit some of our community friends who have each offered some sort of special discount or gift to each of our attendees today. You just have to say that you've been to the design forum. Thank you again to our sponsors and patrons. And most importantly, thank you from Victoria and me. Thank you to our amazing committee. Congratulations. It's been a great 2 days. Thank you.
Ta-da! You did it.
You did it. You're amazing.